Hello.
Hello.
Cinnamon rolls.
How about magazines? Just.
I know. Brian.
Over here. This is our seat. Then move over here.
No.
Yeah, just sit right there.
Oh, Chad.
Where we play? Where after I
No. It's Mad Packers.
Tomorrow, man. Social
Oh, finally, I can see yesterday.
My plan is go see my dance. And you like the grill?
You won't wait anyway. You know what? I was yeah, that was
What's happening? I want to see you. But you don't really play this.
I don't know if this game is for that.
Right now, we're talking about. This is my campaign for social media.
He is like this tall.
Just the papers with the name Yaz on it. That campaign, is it your campaign? Just papers with Yaz on it. Just see your name.
No, I'm gonna do side. Let's decide it.
No, just put Yaz. Just put Yaz.
What's your campaign slogan?
Just put Yaz. They'll know.
Bring it on my knees.
Could I ask you to come down a bit because we've just notified that the microphones here are not working, so it's very difficult to talk in such a large room. So if you come down a little bit towards the front, then we don't have to shout so much. It's a little bit quieter.
Come down here.
Cinnamon baked chocs. Andy's going to be talking for about 45 minutes, and after the presentation, I'll give you out your IMS printouts, and that'll be the end of the class for today. However, when you leave, we have some cinnamon buns for you. Now you can take them when you leave. You can't have them in here. There's no food or drink in this location. So as you leave, you can help yourself to cinnamon buns, maybe 1 or 2 cinnamon buns, and take them outside and eat them or whatever. All right. So Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Forster. Appreciate you inviting me here. If you know how to put this tape on.
Yes.
Okay, I have a small tape. I want you to know a little bit about St. Cinnamon today. I want you to know a little about franchising, and basically you're in a business course. So anything I can impart to you in terms of my experience over the years maybe in some way help you along your way. So the first thing I want you to know about St. Cinnamon is that we're in what they call the food service hospitality industry. So people ask me, are you in the food business? I don't. I say to them, we are in the food service hospitality industry. It's a very big sector of what goes on in North America. It's a very big sector on what goes on in most of the places in the world. I will try to bring you in touch with not only what's happening with the food service industry in Canada, but as well internationally. The reason I have this tape is this is an old tape, but it's a nice tape. It was when we first came into Australia, and I'll tell you we're in 12 countries, and I'll tell you the countries after this. But when we first came into Australia, they did a little article on us, a cooking a network. Like now it's very popular with these food programs, food television networks they have. Well, this was back then, and this was done unsolicited, just someone who saw our business and saw our product and thought it would be a great thing to do a TV show on. It was very popular. So we'll play this and then I'll get into the rest.
Can you smell something, Colette?
Isn't it fabulous?
It's sweet. It is
Spicy.
aromatic, almost sexy, almost.
How rare. I wish I was a coffee scroll now. They're coffee scrolls. Look, they're from St. Cinnamon, and this is not an ad. I was not paid to say this. I actually went and
They only
visited
gave
the
you
place.
a coffee scroll.
Yeah, well, they paid me in kind. Well, they paid me in about 6 kinds. But these are the most fabulous coffee scrolls I think that I have ever tasted.
Fantastic. And the smell is just so seducing, you could say.
Oh,
It's a French word we use when...
oh, is that the French word we use? Seducing?
No, correct. I know that you are going to show us how they are made, but we are going to cook a fish dish today. Delicious fish dish, tomorrow being Friday.
Yeah.
It'll be great for you to try it. And then we are going to go to Ayman Island.
Ayman Island and
where
play
we're going
jazz.
to cook a prawn dish.
Fantastic. But in the meantime, this is how they make these coffee scrolls. Have a look at this. Robin, you have to tell me how you came to be the mother of the most fabulous coffee scroll in the world.
Well, Colette, my 2 sisters are actually visiting us in Canada, where I lived with my husband at the time. We lived there for just a couple of years. And we'd been eating the cinnamon rolls and enjoying them, but not gone beyond that. And they came up, and they're in a mall one day, and they're on the first level. And they smelt this terrific aroma and followed their noses down to the bottom level, where there was a St. Cinnamon store. And they brought some rolls home, and they said, we've just got to bring them to Australia.
And
So
you've did. And so now there's a store here at Melbourne Central.
Yes.
There's one at Knoxfield.
Right. Knox City.
Knox City.
Yeah.
And where's the other one?
The other one's in East Gardens in Pagewood in Sydney.
Fantastic. Now, it's a franchise thing, so it's all special standards, isn't it? So
Yes, it is.
tell me, are there any secret ingredients?
Well, the actual flour mix, which is really the hub of the whole thing, I suppose, the crux of the roll is the actual flour mix, and that is a secret. We're not allowed to have that recipe.
Where do you get the flour mix from?
We get it from Defiance Mills here in Victoria, and they got it from the company in Canada.
And so there's a secret recipe in a safe somewhere, is there?
That's right, that's right.
And so when you make the dough, how do you make the dough?
It's measured out at 5 pounds. For every dough that we do is 5 pounds of the mix, 4 cups of water and 75 grams of yeast.
And then it's mixed in a machine and it proves twice, doesn't it?
It does. It's about an 8 minutes for the actual mixing of it, of the dough. And you've got to be, it doesn't need any handling at all. It comes straight out into the pan and into the proof for 20 minutes.
Right, now James is over there making me the most delicious Black Forest coffee scroll. I mean, it's not like he used to have, you know, with a bit of cinnamon on the top. Now, what's he doing? Now, he's rolled the dough out, and now what's the first thing he does?
He's putting a pound of butter on it, and they're in little packs of roughly 12 to 14 packs in 4 rows on the dough sheet.
And then what's this? It's Dutch cocoa, is it?
Yes, then he sprinkles, I believe it's 50 grams of Dutch cocoa on top of that.
And so much of it. And now the cherries, where do they come from?
They're Australian cherries, yes, definitely Australian. And I believe it's 2 pounds of cherries.
Fabulous.
On that.
Now, after the cherries, what do you chocolate chip?
We have chocolate chips, yes, about 400 grams of chocolate chips. And last but not least, of course, we have the cinnamon sugar.
And that's a secret ingredient too, isn't it?
Well, we get it from the mills, but I believe it's probably 50% cinnamon and 50% brown sugar.
Right. Now, when he's done all that, of course, he rolls it up.
Right. That process of rolling it takes about 30 minutes.
Yes. So he rolls all that up, and then now he's into measuring. Now, what's this measuring that's going on?
24 rolls he'll get out of that dough sheet.
And no funny little bits on the ends?
Yes, we cut off the ends to make sure that everyone gets exactly the same roll.
And you don't cook those bits?
No, we don't.
Oh, I just come in with a little box and just for the little cooked bits, you know, at the end. But, so then they go into the oven for how long?
30 minutes, between 25 to 30 minutes. We look at them at 25 minutes, assess it, and maybe go back for another 2 or 3 minutes.
And there's so many different kinds, aren't there? There's lemon, coconut.
So that's 17 different varieties.
Butterscotch and almond.
Butterscotch and almond, butterscotch and pecan, peach and custard, apricot and custard, strawberry and custard.
And what's the most popular?
The apple. The apple cinnamon is the most popular one here in Australia.
Oh, we are so boring, us Australians. I can't wait to get my choppers around one of those butterscotch almond ones. Thank you,
coming in
Robin.
close second. Thanks, Colette. Nice talking to you.
Okay, I know, I'm watching my weight, but it'd be silly to have come all this way and not try one. So I picked out lemon and coconut.
You got anything on it?
Oh, yes, but just a little.
You say when.
Okay. When?
There we are.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
You know, it's only for a very, very special occasion, you know, like morning tea, every day of my life.
Anyway, gives you an idea that St. Cinnamon is just not local Toronto. We have about 18 locations in the Toronto area. We have about 17 in Quebec and the rest of the provinces outside of the Ontario, Toronto. We have about another 20 locations. Altogether right now, St. Cinnamon stands at 125 locations worldwide. The countries that we're in include Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, Taiwan. We're in the Middle East, we're in Israel and in United Arab Emirates. And this year we'll be opening our first locations in Puerto Rico and Venezuela. How, I guess the way I should start is that outside of the fact that St. Cinnamon is in the top 100 in the food service hospitality industry in Canada, how it all began is not as conventional as it may seem. I don't think people just go and start opening, I think I like cinnamon rolls, I'm going to open up a cinnamon roll idea, I'm going to start developing it and become successful. I was very fortunate because I was in the food industry about a good 15 years before I even got interested in the idea of cinnamon rolls. So I had a very good foundation for what I got into. I believe in my heart that if I would have just said I like cinnamon rolls and I want to do it and I want to open up a franchise, I don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would have had a chance. The fact that I had a foundation behind me, foundation meaning that I had years and years of experience in food service. I had many restaurants. I had many partnerships. I dealt with many developers. I negotiated many leases. I talked to many banks, arranged financing, dealt with suppliers, to spec the products I had. If I didn't have that kind of experience, that kind of foundation, there's no way that St. Cinnamon would be here today. Second of all, it's not just enough to have that experience, it's also having a relationship. Over the years, when you're in business, you do develop a relationship with different people. And all these people I mentioned, developers, when they get to know you, they get to know what you're about, they know that they can trust you, they know that when whatever you've signed in paper, you're able to live up to your obligations. That goes a long way for future relationships. It certainly is a credibility factor that every one of you have to establish in your own field, wherever you go. And sometimes, it's not easy because not everything that you do, that you touch, turns to gold. And failure is a large part of what we have to deal with. It's not the fact that you have failures in life, because I think anyone who doesn't have failures, I think, is not learning fast enough. Failures are, I think, the quickest way to learn. It's how you handle failures, it's how you're able to deal with problems that you're facing. One of the good things, and one of the things I'm happy about when I talk to business students, is that I think what you're trying to do here is understand how to minimize a risk, how to better understand the environment that you're going to be stepping into, whether it's in the food service hospitality industry, or whether it's some other field that has not relating to food. As you go into different obligations, that's because everybody starts off, the first thing you do in a business relationship is you like something, you want to do it, and all of a sudden there's a stack of papers that you're confronted with. And then all of a sudden you go to a lawyer, you go to a consultant, you go to somebody because they understand what these papers are. You certainly don't. Nobody is expecting you to understand these things. But a lot of it, outside of the paperwork, you understand what really drives you is motivation. You've got to be motivated. So before that paperwork ever gets in front of you, there's something about what you want to do that brings you to this point. So whether in my case, I was motivated by the food business. I like the idea of serving people. I like the idea of dealing with people. I like, first of all, when I talked with Mr. Forrester, he said one of the things that he would like me to get into is, some of the technical and mechanical aspects of our business. And, in my business, I feel that, there's what they call two worlds, and they're sort of parallel, but they're two separate worlds. One world is called the high-tech world, which is what's happening in the industry today, where you're dealing with a lot of business computers and things that advance at incredible rates that you've got to be on top of. Because if you're not, you'll just miss the boat, or you'll have to catch it some other time. In the food industry, I call it low tech. That's my definition of the food industry. Some people may resent that because they feel that maybe our industry is more sophisticated, and therefore we should call it high-tech. But what I like about low-tech is that it moves at a different pace. Right from the beginning of time, nothing's changed. Every person on earth has to eat. So what we're dealing with is a commodity that people like, and it's a form of entertainment. It's a necessity. It's got everything going for it that I like, anyway. What I think is also important to know is that when you're talking in terms of necessity, you're talking in terms of emotion. To me, low-tech also, in this particular case, represents emotion. When you're dealing with your senses, like in St. Cinnamon, right from the very beginning, when you're talking about food, you're talking about being satisfied. You're hungry. I mean, I don't think a day goes by that any of you doesn't say to somebody, I'm hungry. And more important than that, I don't think a day goes by when you all look at each other and say, so where are we going to eat? Or what are we going to do? And then everybody says something and you disagree with them. That's part of the fun. It's part of our culture. We love to talk about food, and that's what we represent when we talk in terms of what we do. In terms of what we are as people, I think another thing we should understand when I talk about getting into things, being motivated, then having to sign contracts and going through these special agreements that you have to be stuck for life. That when you're driven, I don't know if anybody ever told you that one of the things when you're sitting in a school, you're taught to be intellectuals. All right, that's basically what you're. I'm a student. I'm a student. I'm an intellectual. That's what you are. Now let's be real, okay? What you really are, and this is what I believe you really are. We're all people, and as people, I believe we're driven by our emotions, and I believe that 90%. And this is a statistic that was given me, but I agree with it. That 90% of what we have is emotion. 10% is intellect. So in other words, when you like something, or you think you analyze something, if you analyze it too much, maybe it's already you're at a dangerous point. Sometimes when you go with there's this expression called gut reaction. You've heard that expression? Gut reaction? You know, sometimes you say, well, it's a little dangerous, gut reaction. But you know what? Gut reaction comes from something that's about you. That doesn't come from something from someone else. That exists because that's you. And sometimes following gut reaction will lead you to a happy choice. Sometimes, you know, you become intellectual, you want to make this, whatever motivates you. But I believe that you are driven by your emotion, and it's okay to listen to your emotion. Once you've listened to your emotion, I believe at that time, it's a good time to start looking at things in terms of your intellect. But I'll tell you some of my experiences. When I first started in the food business, I didn't know anything in reality. I knew what I liked. I was very fortunate. I believe I was one of the fortunate ones because statistically speaking, I'm told that out of every 10 people that get into business, the ones who get in privately, the failure rate is extremely high. Somewhere in the vicinity of 8 failures to 2 successes. Franchising represents a statistic that is more like 7 to 8 successes compared to 2 to 3 failures. Now, if anybody told you that statistics lie, believe them, because you can interpret statistics any way. I know many places where you've got companies that are franchises that are keeping their businesses going. They're losing money at it. But they're, at least when you look at it statistically, it looks like, hey, they're successful. They've got, you know, only 8 successes, 2 failures. In reality, they may have a much higher rate of failure, but because they're strong enough and they're big enough, they're able to support those failures. And they'll interpret those failures as, well, I'll keep that store going because it represents an advertising for me. I'll keep this store going because you know, it represents me, and maybe I can sell more stores as a result of that representation. So when you get into any business, and one of the first things that you'll do, because if you're talking in terms of getting into business, young people, the biggest hurdle that you have is being accepted. You know, the first thing you do, you want to get a license. Well, you're 16, you're 17. Sorry, you know, you can't get a full license. You're not 20, you can't drink. You know, there's all these little, and it doesn't mean that all of you are poor risks. Just means that that's how society looks at you. I know that when it comes to going out to get money, because that's what you need in business, you'll have to look at different options that are open to you. If you have rich parents and they say, hey, I trust you, I'm going to, you know, support whatever you do, maybe you don't have that much of a hurdle. If it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. But if you have a situation where you have to do it on your own, you go to a bank, you have a plan, and now, you know, I've got a couple of business plans to show you what kind of plans there are in the industry. But when you look at the business plans, they look at, oh, it looks good, I like it. Well, food, number one, is considered a high risk as far as banks go. Doesn't mean it is, it's just that it's considered that way. With franchising, it's a lower risk. But when they see a person coming to the bank right away, and it's a young person, they immediately discriminate, and simply for only one reason, because they feel you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have anything to support you. And they're very reluctant to hand out any money. And even if you do have some credibility, they'll still want something. They'll still want a guarantee of some sort. Which brings me to the point of guarantees. Have you all heard this word guarantee?
Yes.
Good. Everybody, that speaks for everybody. Okay, guarantees are something that everybody says, well, if you're going to go into a business, you sign on a dotted line, and what you're signing, they want you to personally guarantee something. Now imagine if you go into a business and you invest $150,000 or $200,000. You go into a business and all of a sudden there's all these things you've got to guarantee, which means that if the business for any reason fails, not only the money that you've lost is at risk, but what's more important is what happens in the future is at risk. So the word personal guarantee is what I'm referring to in detail. Personal guarantees are something that you have to really, if you ever see that word personal guarantee come across your path, stop immediately. And no matter how much you're in love with something, no matter how badly you want something, you better stop, you better think, and you better understand what that means. What it really means is for any reason, because of course when you're going in to borrow money and you're going in to do things, you're expecting to be successful. But think about what might happen. It's okay to want to take a risk, but you have to limit your risk. So whenever you see somebody throwing in guarantees, I'll tell you something. Just the other day, I went to lease a car, all right? And I leased it under the company name. And when I did that, you know, right away the guy throws a piece of paper at me, and he wants me to be a co-signer for the car. And I said, I'm not doing that. He said, well, everybody does that. I said, well, if you don't want to sell me the car, that's fine, but I'm not doing it. All of a sudden, that piece of paper disappeared. You know, that just shows you that there's a different standard. There's a lot of standards out there. So don't believe every time somebody says, here, you got to do this, doesn't mean you have to do it. Not for me. Hello? Wrong number? Yeah. It's my break. Yeah. I remember one of the leases I signed, when I first got into doing restaurants, I signed different leases. And what I did was I gave people a limited guarantee. Limited guarantees meaning that in the event of failure, I'm prepared to risk this much toward that failure. But I'm not prepared to open up carte blanche my whole life. That means that if you fail at something, all of a sudden you're going into your next venture or your next job, all of a sudden all that money that you're making there, you're obligated to the other venture. So in other words, you never rid yourself of an obligation. And I don't think that's fair. I think you should always limit these guarantees, if guaranteeing anything at all. But when I talk to you about these pieces of paper people throw at you, one of the things I've noticed, like when I did Cadillac Fairview, one of the largest developers, commercial developers in Canada, first deal I ever did with them was that they, I wanted to open a restaurant in their mall down at the Eaton Center. Right away, I dealt with the top guy. He gives me these papers to sign. These are our standard leases. Standard leases showed a lot of different things on there which I wasn't accustomed to. And I told them, well, there's a relocation clause. What does that mean? It means that if they want to move you after you opened up, they can move you. But maybe you don't want to be moved. Maybe you like where you are. Maybe the only reason you're taking this location is because that's where you want to be. But you've got to read these leases. You've got to understand them. And then there's all these things about what they're... And the bottom line was, I said, if I have to sign that piece of paper, that's a deal breaker. The word deal breaker. Right away, well, Mr. Winter, hey, you want to be in business with Cadillac Fairview, you got to sign it. Everybody signs that. I said, well, I'm very sorry. We had these wonderful negotiations. We talked for several weeks. I thought we had a deal, but I guess we don't. Goodbye. I walk away. I got a call that afternoon. Mr. Winter, I said, we have this other form. All of a sudden, everything they represented to me that everybody had to sign this obviously was not true. So remember, don't always bend to everyone else's deal, even though they are the landlords, they are the banks, they are the people, the institution. They're called the institution. Don't always bend to the institution. Be understandable. Understand where they're coming from. But it's one of these things that you have to deal with anytime you get into business, anytime you deal with anybody. There's this give and take. But when you're in with big boys, you feel that there's no give. It's always take. And you've got to understand that even the big boys, if they see that you are a commodity to them, that you represent something that they really would like and that they would want to be with, then all of a sudden, you know what? They're not going to be so black and white about things. They're going to start saying, oh, you know what? I've got this other piece of paper. Maybe this will be something that would be agreeable. So remember, don't ever sell yourself short. You are a commodity too. You may not think you are, but eventually you will be. Thanks. Is it all right if I take a break? One of the things that I've learned in business that I've been fortunate enough to be in is that we always think of ourselves as a local market. Right now you're here in Ryerson. You think of yourself as being a student in a local area. What you should do is understand that Canada represents a marvelous marketing opportunity for a lot of countries. We are actually quite attractive to a lot of different communities. What we represent is a certain expertise, a certain marketing experience that we've gotten over the years. So when you think in terms of economies, don't think of local economy, think of global economy. Think of yourself as a Canadian. Think of yourself as something that maybe whatever you're getting into will be valuable to not just the one place that you are, but it could become valuable throughout the world. Like I said, people like Canada. People, wherever I go, when we open up our cinnamon roll stores in Canada, in other countries, the first thing they do is they say, is it okay if we put a little Canadian flag to show that it's from Canada? So I said, absolutely. So sometimes, I'm not only proud of the fact that, I'm a Canadian, but I'm also proud of the fact that people in other parts of the world think of Canada in a very high way. you know, so in a sense, I feel like I'm an ambassador. And when we do go, and I'll tell you another thing, there's so much to learn. One of the things that I thought was wonderful is that as a Canadian, when I go to the other countries, I see there's a lot of, every country has an ambassador, Canadian ambassador, or a representative. And that's all being paid and all being organized through your Canadian government. So, in other words, if I go there, I meet with these people. We have it's almost like a called high state thing, but we go in. When we open up a grand opening, we have the ambassadors, Canadian ambassadors coming. The ambassadors of the countries come for a grand opening because really it's a multicultural type of event. So it's really not just one store opening. It's really a happening. So these are things that you can lock into. They don't even cost you any money. You know, it's all being paid for, and they're out there, and they love to be able to help you. They love to have an excuse for their job. So, you know, when you go out there, they're happy, you know, they're right away, I'm going to give you a real nice story, which I think you'll enjoy. I remember when we opened up in the United Arab Emirates, our franchisee there was knocking on doors for about 6 months, trying to get in contact with the malls. And the malls were weren't interested in talking to him. So he turned to me and says, Mr. Winter, can you help me? And so I said, I'll see what I can do. I called up the Canadian Embassy and I told them that I want to arrange to go there for about 2 days, and I want to meet with all the mall managers or the owners of the malls. So they phoned up the malls. I got a call back the same day in the afternoon that they arranged 6 appointments for me. 6 appointments. In other words, the gentleman that was there, he wasn't able to do anything when so how come all of a sudden 6 appointments? Well, I'll tell you, if an ambassador, a Canadian ambassador calls a mall manager or a mall owner and says, excuse me, I have Mr. Winter coming in on such and such a date, and he's the franchisor, all of a sudden it becomes an international event. So it's really great. So all of a sudden I walk in there, and you know, all the doors open, they all give me the red carpet treatment. I sit down, which I like, okay? And the nice part is you sit down over there, and I see some of them looking at me, and they're just shaking their heads. They said, what am I doing here? Why am I just letting, you know, I mean, who are you? You know, why did I make this, you know? And because the Canadian Embassy gave them a call. And this protocol, they're being cordial, is something that's there. So, you know, don't think of yourself when you get into your own business. Think about not just the local market or whatever you're doing, but think in terms of the international market. You're going to find out it's a phenomenal world. It's great. You get terrific. It's a terrific experience. If anything else, if you wanted nothing else from life but to see the world and to travel, this is a great opportunity. All right. I'm going to talk a little about franchising. Okay. Why franchise? Why not just, I told you already that you can open up your business and you have a risk of failure. One of the reasons for franchising is because a lot of the failures that have already been experienced, just as I guess, why are you coming to business school? Ask yourself that question. Why you're coming to business school is to learn something, and what you learn is something that will help you to determine certain things, evaluate risks. In terms of getting into a franchise, what you're getting is that particular map. You know, many times when people want to go into business, they go in blindly. I like to use this analogy. It's called, you know, being shipwrecked on an island. You know, you go over there, you don't know where anything is. Chances of survival are remote. You don't know. You know, it's a race against time. You know, whether you're going to make it or not. Business also is like a window. It's a window. Everything has a window of opportunity. In any business you get into, there's a window. When you start off, you're starting off with an investment. You're hoping that that investment will last long enough for you to be able to be in a position where you're going to start making a profit and where you're going to be able to be steady, solid, on solid ground. Well, the same thing about a map. When you go onto Shipwrecked Island, you walk in there and all of a sudden you don't know if you're going to make it. You don't know where the water supply is, you don't know where the food is, you don't know anything, and as a result your chances of making it are very remote. That's why I like the idea of franchising. I'm talking in terms of general. There are what you have to do is there's called a screening too. Meaning, although something can be called a franchise, you also have to understand what is a franchise. What is it? Somebody could open a, hey, I got a great idea. Oh, it's the best idea ever. You know what? I'm going to make it a franchise. Well, you know what? That's not good. And the reason it's not good, because just because there's a great idea, it doesn't mean that you've got the foundation. There has to be a foundation. That's what the first thing I said to you. The reason I believe I was successful is because I had that foundation. When you get into any business, if you say, oh, this sounds like a great idea. Oh, I'd love to be part of this. I want to be in this business. Always check who you're dealing with. And when you check who you're dealing with, check to see just what kind of track record they have. Even though they have a great idea, see what's behind that great idea. See what supports that great idea. The word support is a very important factor. Many times you buy a franchise and you end up saying, okay, I bought a franchise, what now? Well, they gave me this, they gave me that, they gave me this, and then all of a sudden, that's it. You're done. Support is not just opening a store. Support is being there as the business develops. When you get into any business, when you first start, there's a lot of factors that go into what we do. And I'll tell you what support is. When you buy a franchise, you should get the following things. You should, number one, understand the business plan that goes behind it. You should understand the location. One of the things that our franchisees do when they sign a franchise agreement, before they do anything, is they understand that the location is a decision that is theirs. If they say they want to be a St. Cinnamon franchisee, that's one thing. But that's great. We want them, that's where we sort of look at each other. They look at us, they say, well, yeah, I'd like to be in business with you. We look at them and say, well, we want to be in business with you too. So this is called the screening part, where they do their job to check you out, and you do your job to check them out. And there's the credit application, and once you get past that, you're still there's no commitment here. The commitment comes when there's a location. Therefore, what you do is when you walk into a place and say, I like that location. I feel I can be successful with this idea or this concept. I can make it work. So that's where a marriage in a franchising begins. Location, location, location. Have you ever heard that word? Location?
Yes.
All right. Okay. In business, it's used all the time. Why is it important? Why is location important? When you open up a business, you have to have people. You have to have a way of getting people. People are what drives your business. If you can't get people in the food industry, imagine if I opened up a store where there are no people. I would expect people to find me. How would I expect them to find me? So in terms of you getting a location, you have to find something that must work for you, something that you feel that people will be able to come to your place. Accessible. It's like a lot of fish in the sea. You got a lot of fish, you go fishing, what happens? You got one hook, you take one fish out. There's 10 people with hooks. One has more attractive bait. So he gets all the fish, you get nothing. It could be a lot of fish in the sea, but you get nothing. But it's certainly better going into that kind of a situation than going into a place where there are no fish and you got 10 people fishing. So think in terms of when you're looking at opening a business, that you've got to have something to drive the business, and it's the people that may be going by or how those people are going to come to you. Okay. In terms of the location, you see sometimes, what we look for a franchisee. We know that there's what they call several streams of customers. You open a store, and all of a sudden, there are people that fall into your store. Those are people that would have come because it's convenient for them. don't do a good job, you lose that front line. How do you expect to get people who won't fall into your store? So that's why we try and train. We have a very extensive training program. When we talk in terms of getting together with a franchisee, we train them. We have the training involves that understanding, the knowledge that customers are the most important thing that you have going for you. You don't treat a customer properly. That's why we call ourselves food, service, hospitality. You know, you're talking about hotels, you're talking about restaurants, you're talking about any institution where you're there, your front line, your service. That's what you are. And if you can't give people the proper service, don't expect. With Canada is a very, very tough market. People expect a lot. If they don't get it, you'll never see them again. They're not forgiving. You know, maybe in Russia back in the communist time, you could stand in line, you could get slapped around, you know, because you weren't standing straight enough in line, and you won't get your loaf of bread. In Canada, it doesn't work that way. In Canada, you don't treat customers properly. Here's a statistic for you. Remember what I said about statistics, but here's one. It says for every customer that you can make happy or you can please, they will tell 1 to 2 other people. That's Canada. In other words, hey, I had the great. When you guys walk out of here and you eat these cinnamon rolls, I expect you to tell 1 or 2 other people, say, oh man, I had these fantastic cinnamon rolls. Oh, they're great. And make sure you say St. Cinnamon, okay? Then, the other thing what you'll do is if you don't like something, is you know what you do if you don't like something? You're going to start telling 7 to 10 people, even more. You know what? I really didn't like the way they treated. Oh, I'll never go back there again. And you know what? You want to get it off your chest. So you're going to tell as many people as you like, but they didn't treat me right. I went there and they were supposed to do this and they didn't do that. And so all of a sudden, you're going to, until you get it off your chest, until you forget about it, until you go to some other experience, you're going to start telling as many people as you can. Because I have friends. They keep telling me all the time, I didn't get treated right. I didn't get treated right. So they tell me, I'm sure they're going to tell a lot of other people. But the funny part is you get treated right, we're not very forgiving here in Canada. Canada, you get treated right, you'll tell a couple of people, hey, great cinnamon roll. Then you'll move on. You get treated badly, you'll tell everybody what a lousy place it is. Never go in there. And your friends will tell everybody, hey, you know what you told me? You told me it's a lousy place, don't go in there. That's what we're dealing with. One of the things that I'll touch on, which I think is important, which Mr. Forster wanted me to talk about, is what, when we talk in terms of management in business. Management is something where you've got to, how do you teach people how to behave in a business? You come in with your own talents. Some guys are very outgoing, some people aren't. Some people, they're not really geared to be in our industry. And it's nothing against anyone here. Some people just aren't good with people. They don't like necessarily to be with people. They're much more comfortable in a different environment. There are a lot of those environments as well. But if you like people, you're outgoing, you feel that, you feel like you're in that mode, then being that person, the food service hospitality industry is one of the places that you can go, and there's a lot of areas in there, whether it's airline stewardess or whatever. But what it comes to is that what is it about me that translates into my company? What it is that, first of all, I believe that the customer is the most important thing you have going for you. You have to treat customers with absolute respect. You've got to appreciate them. You've got to know that you're there for them. You've got to be consistent. You've got to be clean. Anything that you do represents respect. Respect is what you've got. When you talk in terms of today, when you see these restaurant food places closing down, now over the years, I've seen restaurants. I've delivered to restaurants. I know what goes on in restaurants. And the fact that they haven't closed down up till now is a complete surprise to me. I've seen so many. Have you read about the restaurant closings? Okay, good. What you see there is just a tip of what's really out there. Right. I remember when I came to Canada, I remember my parents didn't want to go to restaurants. They always wanted to eat at home. And I could never understand, come on, let's go out, let's go out. No, 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 no. And the reason was because they, from their experience, from the old country, they understood that restaurants can't be trusted. Because you don't know what the guy's doing behind there. You don't understand what goes on in there. And therefore, it makes you feel uncomfortable. For me, I never had that experience. I'm a Canadian in a sense. So, I trust everything. But when you see, in reality, that there isn't the steps taken to really look after you, the customer, then there's the problem. That's why mom and pop operations sometimes scare me. Not because I don't think there's great ones, and I don't think that they deserve, every individual deserves the chance. That way they all look the same. They may all be a little bit smaller, but that way they all look the same. And I said, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think? So you know what? A 17-year-old kid who never had any food experience at all, and here I am, like, the guru of what I'm doing, and suddenly he walks in and, hey, Mr. Winter, what? And I said, great idea. Why didn't I think? Because sometimes you're too close to the, the forest, the trees, I'm just too close to it. So I think it's wonderful. I learn a lot from every the people I meet. In terms of what I said, the first thing about failure, and I love to say this because I think it's something that you should look at. People in life, I'm not saying that you should be foolish. I'm not saying that you should risk foolishly, but I think that in anything you do, and anything you want, there has to be an element of risk. The element of risk is only tempered by what you yourself know and learn in your experiences. And I end with this thing that I don't know if Edison, invented the light bulb. He had more patents than anyone else. He invented more things than anyone else. And there was one interview with Edison, and they asked him after he retired. They said, "Mr. Edison," says, "so we understand that before you came up with the light bulb, that you had 2,000 failures." And Edison replied, said, "No, I didn't have 2,000 failures. So what I had was 2,000 ways of knowing how not to make a light bulb." Okay? So what you're doing and learning in your own case here is maybe you're learning from experiences, you're learning from text, you're understanding ways not to make a light bulb. But the bottom line is that when you eliminate all those, you should be able to come up with a light bulb. And that's what hopefully success will be for you. Okay?
Mr. Winter will answer any questions you'd like to ask. If you have any questions you'd like to ask.
Yes?
Where's your closest location?
Eaton Center. Right just north of Queen in the concourse area. Thank you for asking that most important question. If anybody has any other questions?
I have a couple.
Yes.
You mentioned a number of countries where you're located. Do you have anything in the UK?
No, I don't.
Why?
All right. Well, there's other countries I don't have anything to do, but UK in particular, what we do are the people that have come to us so far. We now have a web page. I have cards here, so if you ever want to look up our web page, we have another concept called Cups Coffee House, which we now have 2 locations operating, one opening up in the brick superstores. So that's one of the things that we have going. So just so you know, that St. Cinnamon also has a few other businesses. To answer the question about UK, all the people that we've dealt with so far have come to us. We haven't gone to any country. We haven't been in a mode where we go and we solicit anyone else. So what happens is people learn about us and they come to us. And those people that have learned about us, who came to us, those are the ones we've done business with so far.
I have one other question. It's on franchising. There's an article in the newspaper about 2 days ago about franchisees. They have an association who look after the interest of the franchisee. And there seems to be some conflict between franchisors and franchisees and the law, which governs the relationship. Can you comment on that? Because it seems a bit of a minefield for that.
Okay. I never read the article, so but I can tell you from my experience that when you get into a relationship with a franchisee, one thing we always do before we ask anything from a franchisee, we say, take this agreement to your lawyer. It has to be to your lawyer. Not because we want him to tell us how to change our agreement. We like our agreement the way it is. But we always advise them to go to a lawyer because the lawyer can at least be their representative, their contractual representative. If a franchisee doesn't do that, we will not enter into a franchise agreement. In terms of different relationships, you know, it's an interesting thing because we can get into what they call law technicalities. You know, I don't know if you know that there's what they call a waive when it comes to the way things are perceived. Sometime back a few years ago, the franchisee was perceived as the big bad guy, and the franchisee was the little innocent. You know, big bad guy, little innocent. So if there was ever a dispute in court, the favor of any judge, you know, right away from the very beginning would be, you know what, he's the little guy, you're the big guy. So big guy, bad, little guy, good. That has changed. It's called the sociological change that goes on in our society. Now, what is better understood is that by law, because by law, the agreement says this is your agreement. So all of a sudden, if someone wants to break the agreement, because I was a little guy and I really didn't know, and therefore it wasn't fair, you know, that doesn't wash as well as it used to wash. So now when judges look at things, they use, it's called buyer beware. In other words, they tell you, you know what, you know, I understand that you're the little guy and he's the big guy, but you know what, you've had every opportunity to do everything that you were supposed to do and go through every element of this agreement that you were given every chance. Now that things have happened and you're not happy, you know, now you've got to deal with it. In other words, you're not going to get the benefit of me as a judge on your side. So, but each individual thing should be looked at as a separate, you know, every issue has its own merit. So I don't want to categorize things into one ball because, you know, there are legitimate cases on both sides. But like anything else, you know, let it come out in the wash.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No.
Listen.
I'm just a little confused on your title. Now, because St. Simon is worldwide, do you take care of operations across the world, or do you have CEOs and presidents located in, let's say, Australia or?
That's a great question. Okay, can I spend 2 minutes on that? No, that is a great question. What we do is we sell masters, which means that the people that we get into business with are other business people who are either in the food business or have other businesses. So they already have an office, they're already in that mode. So you'll find that they're conglomerates in a way. Like for example, the guy who owns Dairy Queen in the Philippines also owns Kentucky Fried, also owns Pizza. So you know, that's how it works. So it's called a master agreement, a master franchise agreement. It's a different document. There's actually different levels of agreements. The first agreement is what they call the individual franchise agreement. Then there's what they call a master agreement, and the master agreement deals with a territory. So in the case of Australia, they have, you know, you could have a province. Like in Quebec, I have a master for that area. So he has a different agreement. It's a much larger document, and it takes into consideration those other avenues. But they have their own offices, they have their own, and what they do is they take your idea, they become sort of a licensee of your idea, and they follow what you do. It's like a, you know, and they perpetuate it there. Did you know by any chance, if you saw on W5 the other day, they had this about how to become a millionaire? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, who saw it, do you realize that How to Be a Millionaire is a franchise? And actually, they bought the rights from the place in England, where, you know, a guy came up with the idea in England, and now it's in about 18 countries, and so that's a franchise. So but you gotta, in that case, you gotta have a lot of money to buy that kind of franchise. For St. Cinnamon, you don't have to be that rich. Thanks for asking that question. It's a great question.
Any others? Okay, thank you. Look, I'm going to give you your IMS games, okay? Results. In the meantime, you want to talk to Mr. Winter personally, he'd be very happy to talk to you.
By the way, I've only got a few of these. We're also we're sponsoring a movie called El Dorado, and that's going to be on Wednesday. Yeah, I figured this is for guys who maybe don't want to buy a ticket. Anyway, it's good for two, and it's for March 29th, Wednesday, 7 o'clock. If you're sure you can attend, so for those people, I've got about 10 of these. If you can't attend, don't take it, because we got a lot of people that will. Okay, so, yeah. And if anybody individually would like to ask a question, I'm here.
Sure.
All right, this is Industry 700. Industry 700. Number one. Number two. And you can take some cinnamon buns and you can leave. Go out that door if you like. Number two. Number three. 703.
Green beard.
Four. Five. Cinnamon buns. Go. Five.
Cinnamon buns around.
Seven.
Back, man.
Seven.
Breathing on me the whole time. I feel like there's that puddle in my ear.
Nine.
He's all kind. Seven. Leroy. Shut up. Oh, yeah. Now, I'm the person who guys. Simmer. Little station.
800. Number one. 800, number one.
You hear that?
Someone get me some cinnamon bun. 800, number one. Number two. Number three. 800, number three. Number four. Number 800. Right there. Number five. Seven.
We still have hope.
900. 900. Industry 900. Number one. Number one.
Is that thing on? Oh man, I'm getting filmed, eh?
Yo, somebody worked everyone that period, man.
Number four.
I can imagine not getting stuck.
Number five. Number six. Seven. Number nine. Okay, number 100, industry 100. Right here. Number one. Number one.
He's alive? What are you doing?
Number four. Number five. Five. Oh, everyone's watching. Number six. Number nine. Number nine into 100. If I say even next time. Industry 200. Number one. Number two. Number two. Number three. What up? 25. Get on my way. 5 and 6, 6.
I know exactly what you said.
6, 7. And don't forget 4 o'clock Tuesday. Term 9.
Yeah, I saw it.
Term 10. Please go to the outside, will you please?
What? Loud? Loud? All right. Had another break down. Lots of talking. Right into the house.
Watch the bed.
No, there's only one in there. There's only one in there.
Is there anybody from Industry 800 here? Who's from Industry 800?
I like the answer. Just like how I got my
We got one more.
Anybody from Industry 800? Who's in this Industry 800? Yeah. When you go outside for those, I've actually have that in time. You're not allowed to eat in here. Take them outside, please. No.